Hey everybody, are you ready for Halloween? Well, we are here at BackToFrankBlack.com, and we're taking a look today at 13 Years Later. This is another one of Troy Foreman's favorite episodes. Funny how those are the episodes keep getting picked here. But regardless, I do need to make a small confession before we start talking about this episode. And that is, well, quite frankly, this was the first episode of MillenniuM I intentionally skipped. That's right, when this episode aired, this was during the beginning of the third season, and I was one of those fans who was pretty distraught that the entire storyline pretty much of the second season was just kind of chucked out the window as the show went in a new direction. And when I saw that this was going to be another one of those hokey, silly episodes, guest starring Kiss, no less, I couldn't take it. I had a Halloween party that night, and I just said, forget it. I'm skipping this episode. We'll try again next week. Now, youthful indiscretion aside, please don't hold that against me, because I did watch the episode later on FX as they did their MillenniuM Meltdown series, and I did enjoy the episode. Although, to be fair, I think there are a few problems we need to talk about. Here's my thing. Not a big fan of Kiss. I'm just not. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you guys out there are huge fans of Kiss, but really, if you want to talk about 70s rock bands and whatever, I went with David Bowie. Not a big fan of Kiss. Besides, I wasn't born in a mobile home park. No, I'm just joking, Kiss fans. Don't get all mad at me about it. Regardless, though, when I saw that they were doing Kiss as a guest star, I just couldn't take it, because that to me was too much of a removal from the world of MillenniuM. And let's face it, this episode is another one of those quirky little fun episodes that they did to kind of mellow out the show a little bit, you could say, to bring in a wider audience of fans. And while on the one hand that's great, you need to do that in order to keep your viewership up, on the other hand, for fans like me, it just wasn't what I wanted to see in my episode of MillenniuM. Now, having said that, and having watched the episode later on, I did enjoy the episode in many ways because I'm a huge slasher movie fan. And, I used to actually, at one point, I ran a website for the Friday the 13th films. I watched all the Halloweens, the Texas Chainsaw Massacres, Nightmare on Elm Street, Psycho Cops, Maniac Cops, House, Amityville, whatever. Anything that was a slasher movie you could rent in the 80s and early 90s, I pretty much got my hands on and watched. And so it was fun to see Emma and Frank looking through these different horror movies, kind of taking knocks at some of the different conventions that we look at in horror movies and things like that. But at the same time, MillenniuM episodes always had a certain gravity to them. And even when they were doing an episode like with Jose Chung, it was silly and quirky, and I'm not the biggest fan of that episode because the gravity wasn't as deep in that episode. But I think that core was still there. Whereas in this episode, I think it tried so hard to kind of ape a lot of those slasher movies and a lot of those cheesy kind of slasher movie riffs that it really kind of lost part of what made MillenniuM so deep and so attractive to people like me who really like that dark, deep horror. MillenniuM was always more The Exorcist than it was Nightmare on Elm Street. And this episode just played off as campy and kind of goofy, and it was fun. It was, it was a party episode. Everyone was having a good time. And, there's really nothing wrong with that, except that wasn't really the episode I wanted to see. Now, again, looking back on it with different eyes now that I'm older, the show is off the air, it's looking back at an old friend. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of the episode, I still know to look at this one as the episode to have fun with. The episode where you're just getting drunk, you're having a fun time. You'll watch this episode of MillenniuM, not the one with the high school shooting or the one where the little kids are getting abducted or the ones where priests are being set on fire or any of those type of deep episodes. This is one of those that's, just kind of a, I hate to use the term as a throwaway episode, and in many ways it kind of is. But that doesn't mean it's not entertaining, and that's what this episode is. It's an entertaining romp in the world of MillenniuM from start to finish. And I can respect that, even though not one of my favorites. Happy Halloween, everybody. Thanks for watching.
redfish.